So I wanted to spend a few minutes to talk about how to take samples from same place, different depths. So we just did a 0 to 6 inch sample core. So that would be the cylinder that I put in the bag previously for different, and then what we're gonna do is prepare the hole to take another one deeper. So what I wanna point out is when you take a sample, you have soil that was lost that's waste between your samples. And so even though we did a 0 to 6 inch sample, I'm actually looking at, my hole now is 7 inches deep. And so what I need to do to get a better sample is probably prepare that to a hole of 8 inches depth so that my next sample can be from 8 to 14 inches in depth. And it'll make more sense as we go through it in the field. But so with that in mind, I'm going to mark on here from the bottom of the planer to about 8 inches. And that will be my point of reference that I need that hole to be 8 inches deep so that I have a sample from 8 to, what did I say, 14. And I find that tape just makes it that much easier for a point of reference when I'm doing this planing tool. All right, this time we're going to collect a sample that's at 8 to 14 inches. So I'm returned to a location where I've got the 0 to 6 inch hole, or 0 to 6 inch sample. And the first step is to prepare that location to take the sample at depth. So I'm just checking here that the loose material has been removed and my hole is about 7 inches deep. So I need to take it down an inch. Now the problem I've discovered is if I use the planer only, it's too narrow to really get that sampler down to get the bulk density core into position. So what I'm going to do is open it up a little bit and then clean the bottom, check my depth, and then take my second sample. So all I'm here trying to do is just go no deeper than the hole already is. I'm just going to open it up a little bit. And it's going to be kind of messy, but I'll clean it out with that auger. And I don't want to go too deep. That's the one thing you need to be cautious of here. I'm also doing it only on one side so I can see the hole that I started with, so I have that to work with versus just throwing a shovel in and not knowing how it compares with where I was already. All right, I think I should do it. There we go. So now I have a hole that's smooth, wider, and still no deeper than I was. So it's about 7 inches at its deepest. And now what I'm going to do is use this planer tool, which is built to auger layers of the soil out. And then go right about where I was before. And as I turn it, a ribbon of soil lifts up. And I remove that. Remove the loose stuff. And I continually get surface material. I'm going to try to remove that too, because we don't want that in my sample. Check the depth. A little bit further. Yeah. All right, so we're at about 8 inches from the bottom to the soil surface. Just trying to get a good grip on making sure it's in the right place. Maybe take a little bit more. So if you have something flat, that works as a way to double check. Okay. I just have a little extra around the side I'm going to get rid of. So it's nice and it's plenty of room for the bottom of that to fit. I'm not really digging it any deeper, I'm just cleaning the walls on the inside. So instead of having a hole that's shaped really narrow, I have a little bit more space here for that point of reference to begin my next sample. And you pick up the beastie and you put her in a position and you go. Or you step away and you have your tech do it and you go look over your records. Oh, and I've also marked this. So this is where I need the soil surface to be for that to be at the right position in the ground. I'm optimistic, but I know I'm nowhere near. All right, so what I'm seeing in here is that cap with a thread, the threaded portion, is still visible, the full thing, and the tape is starting to be non-visible, so I know I'm getting close. And I've got about, what, half an inch to 3/4 of an inch to go. It's looking good from looking straight down, and I'd say we're just about there. So this one's going to be a little more tricky to get out because it's deeper, so I've got to make my hole a little wider. I'm going slow with the shovel so that I don't gouge into my sampler. And I advise don't just hammer it back out because I've lost samples that way. And it's enough of an effort. I don't want to do it again if I don't have to. So a little careful excavation is my recommendation. Double check. Nice on the bottom. So I'm going to remove it and then move to the table to take the sample out. Time to remove the sample. I've got a bag in position because the sample that's on the top here is stuff I want to keep. I'll be honest, I used a screwdriver and a hammer to free this because it seized up, so other tools that are useful. Just remove the cap, and I've got a nice sample in there, and then my sample sleeves are 2 stacked metal sleeves. And it looks like at least the bottom one, or top one rather, is coming out nicely. And that one. And anything that's outside of this I don't need to keep, so I'm going to position it like that. So this needs to be trimmed off, and all of that needs to come out. Maybe that's discarded. I'm right-handed. So this is all discard because my sample is inside. Now I want to point out that while I could have a ton of these little cylinders and use them for my sampling, and it'd be faster for me to set it into the lab like this in a bag, but someone has to take these out, and plus these can get expensive if you need to do a bunch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice it down the middle, and I'm going to remove the soil from each of these so that I'm keeping the cylinder for future use, and I'm going to save some time on the analysis end. And I don't care about it not being a clean time on the analysis end because the sample will be a loose sample for them to work with. And I didn't cut it cleanly because it's all going in here as an 8 to 14 inch sample. So what I'm going to carefully do is set this aside, and I'm going to work on this for half first. You can tell it's breezy, so working inside the bag is a good plan, or you can work inside a clean bucket. But all I'm doing here is just removing that upper, or the outer sample, and I'll work on the other side too. And eventually there's a breakthrough point where it pushes right out. And it depends a lot on your texture. This is a little bit of a clay soil and it's a little dry at the surface, but quite moist at the bottom. So it's a little extra time. But your friends in the lab will be thankful if they don't have to do this, plus you get to keep your equipment. Come on. I'm just about there. So what I like to use is a skewer. Sometimes that's all it takes. It's a few pokes down the middle to free it up. Nope, not in this case. But it does work. All right, so I can poke it through, which means the rest usually isn't so bad. Come on, get in there. All right, so you can see it's starting to get more free, and I can go around the inside and clean it out, go around the outside. That's where these stainless steel cylinders are quite nice to work with. And I'll need to clean that up for the second one, or to use it again. And now, second half. This is reminding me a bit about getting Legos unstuck from one another. You have to get at it at just the right angle to disengage the pieces. There we go. Now we're coming. Almost there. Only 300 more cores to go today. Okay, maybe not. So there's a tip. Know what kind of soils you're expecting to be in when you plan your day. Texture and moisture content. Come on. So you can still see I've got all that work and I'm still got the center third or so locked into position. If I work on the middle here, I should get it freed up. Ah, I can see lights. All right. Yeah, okay. Okay, cursory clean. Make sure the sample that belongs in there is in there. And you'll see I've already labeled it ahead of time with the dimensions. So this one was 2 7/8 by 6 inches. So it's a 3-inch core on the outside, so make sure you get the internal diameter and the length, the location, date, and this is an 8 to 14-inch depth. And what I'm going to do when I prepare all these is create a sheet that has that information again, just for purposes of error checking. And sometimes you can staple a label to the outside or put another sticker, or wrap it up with tape with label if you mess up the label. So there are other ways to make sure you convey that information. That only took me 4 hours, just kidding, but it does take some effort. It's certainly worthwhile taking them out of the cylinders though, because these tend to get locked into the chamber less frequently than the plastic. So a good set of these is useful, or a couple of them, so you can have someone sampling and someone preparing the sample, so you can kind of keep this in action all the time. That is one tip to help save time.